Hey everyone, welcome back. So you're trying to build a programming portfolio that'll really impress employers. It's a lot, right? Especially if you're like me and you've been reading like every article and every forum thread about it. Well, I found this really interesting article and I think it'll help. It's called Building a Portfolio That Impresses Employers, a guide for bootcamp graduates and self-taught programmers.
Mm,
It's a mouthful, but it's got some great advice. Ready to dive in.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I really like that this article is focused on a specific challenge,
Yeah.
breaking into tech without a traditional computer science degree, right? Like it acknowledges how competitive it is and offers some real strategies.
Totally. It felt very relatable. So, where do we even begin with this whole portfolio thing?
Well, the article jumps right into what employers are looking for, and it boils down to five key things, which are solid programming skills, grasp of computer science fundamentals, strong problem-solving abilities, and then there's algorithmic thinking. And of course, the ability to actually complete projects.
Okay, yeah, those all make sense, but I feel like we hear those things all the time, right? So, is there anything in the article that kind of digs a little deeper? Like, how do those things translate to what employers actually want to see?
Totally, yeah. Think of it like this, like building a program. It's kind of like baking a cake, right?
Yeah.
You need the right ingredients, which are, your programming skills, your CS fundamentals, and then you need a recipe. That's your ability to think algorithmically, to break down a complex task into manageable steps.
Okay, so I'm following the recipe, then what?
Then comes the execution, the actual baking. That's where your problem-solving abilities and project completion come in. Employers need to see that you can take those skills and turn them into something tangible, something finished that shows what you understand and what you can do.
I love that analogy. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It's not just a checklist, right? They all kind of work together, those five key things.
Exactly. And that's where the article's focus on heavy, like, challenging projects really comes in.
Yeah, I was really interested in that. It's easy to just think, oh, I'll build another to-do list app. But this article really pushes us to go beyond that, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. They use the example of building a search engine, but like with an autocorrect feature. So anyone can use Google.
Yeah.
But to build something even remotely similar to that, it takes a deep understanding of algorithms, data structures, problem solving. That's the kind of project that makes an employer go, okay, this person can handle some serious complexity.
I see what you mean. It's not just about following a tutorial. It's about going deeper, showing that mastery.
Exactly. And they have some other really interesting examples like building a recommendation engine. Like those, you might also like suggestions you see on like streaming services and stuff.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I always wonder how those work.
Imagine being able to say, I built something like that in an interview. Suddenly, your portfolio goes from simple apps to like real world problem solving.
That's huge. So it's not just about making things complicated for no reason. It's about picking projects that really showcase a deeper understanding.
Exactly. And that actually leads to another point they make, which is how important it is to show that you understand data structures and algorithms,
Yeah.
even within those bigger projects.
Okay, now you've got me really curious. Why are those things so important, even if, like, I'm not trying to be an algorithm specialist or anything?
Well, it comes down to problem solving and efficiency. Think of data structures as the tools you use to organize and store data and algorithms as like the step-by-step process of working with that data. The better you get at those fundamental concepts, the more efficient and honestly, the more elegant your code's going to be.
So it's like the difference between building a house with a blueprint and just like winging it as you go.
Exactly. When you get those concepts, you can even start to design your own custom solutions to problems instead of just using pre-built ones.
That makes sense. Although I have to admit, when I first read the part about designing your own data structures, that sounded a little intimidating. Can you give me like an example of what that would even look like in like real world coding?
Sure. Let's say you're building a social media app,
Yeah.
right, where users can follow each other. You could use a simple list to store all the followers for each user, but imagine your app gets huge. Millions of users, thousands of connections. That list becomes really inefficient to search through.
Ah, okay. So the basic tool isn't enough anymore.
Right. But if you understand data structures, you might use what's called a graph data structure. Graphs are made for showing relationships between things and are way more efficient for searching and navigating large networks of data. So by making a custom graph for your app, you could seriously improve its performance.
Okay, that's a game changer. Building a custom data structure for a specific need. It's like you're not just following the rules, you're understanding the whole system.
That's a great way to put it. It shows a much deeper level of understanding, that ability to create solutions that are elegant and efficient and tailored to the problem at hand.
It's a really powerful message to send to potential employers, for sure. So we've talked about challenging projects, showing our knowledge of data structures and algorithms, but what about the code itself? Sometimes I get caught up in trying to learn every new JavaScript framework that pops up. Like, will that really make my portfolio more impressive?
That's so common, especially in web development. But the article says something interesting about knowing languages. It's not about chasing trends, it's about showing mastery of the fundamentals.
So it's better to be really good at one or two languages and really showcase those well instead of having a little bit of everything on my resume.
Exactly. Focus on clean, efficient code that's easy for anyone to read and understand. And don't forget about clear documentation.
Oh, documentation. I'll admit, that's something I've been guilty of, not always prioritizing. But I get it, it's really important for presenting my work.
Absolutely. It's like walking someone through your process, explaining the why behind your code. Shows you're not just coding, you're creating thought-out solutions.
Okay, so we've put our heart and soul into these incredible projects. We've got clean code, thorough documentation. How do we show off all this amazing work? That's where the portfolio itself comes in, right?
Exactly. And the article had a really interesting take on this. It says, portfolio is more than just a project graveyard. It's about telling a story about your skills and your journey as a programmer.
Ooh, I like that. It's not just a dumping ground for code, it's more curated.
Exactly. And just like with any good story, presentation matters.
So no more just throwing code on GitHub and hoping for the best, although GitHub is still important, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. GitHub is fantastic for hosting your code and showing contributions to open source, but the article emphasizes going a step further.
Yeah.
Create a well-structured website as the central hub for your portfolio.
So it's like the difference between having a bunch of amazing ingredients and actually cooking a delicious meal and then plating it beautifully.
I love that analogy. It captures it perfectly. Your website should be visually appealing, easy to navigate, and it should showcase your best work in a way that's both like interesting and informative.
That makes a lot of sense. So we're not just listing every single project we've ever done. We need to be more selective.
You got it. Think of it like a museum curator showing off their prized pieces, You want to choose projects that highlight your skills in the best light and ones that align with the kind of roles you want.
This is where I think I get stuck, honestly. I feel like I need to showcase everything, like more is always better, but you're saying quality over quantity is key.
Precisely. Choose projects that you're genuinely proud of, ones that really show off your problem-solving skills and that demonstrate your understanding of those core concepts we talked about. Each project should be like a mini story about your skills and your journey.
Okay, this is giving me a lot more confidence about how to approach this, I have to say. So we've got this killer portfolio website. It's showcasing our best work. Each project tells a story. Is there anything else we can do to up our chances of landing that dream job?
There's got to be, right? Oh, for sure. The article goes beyond just the portfolio. Like it has all this advice for going above and beyond. It really felt like it was written for people without that formal CS background.
Yeah, for real.
One thing it really stresses is consistently working on those algorithm and data structure skills.
Right.
It's easy to put those off if you're not, like, trying to be an algorithm master. But the article makes a good point about why they're so important for any programmer, really.
So true. So it's not just about code that works. It's about code that's elegant, efficient, scalable. Like the difference between building a birdhouse and designing a skyscraper.
Exactly. And one of the best ways to get better at those is practice, deliberate practice. They mentioned Algo Academy specifically. Have you heard of that? It's like a digital training ground for your coding brain.
Algo Academy, yeah. I played around with it a bit. It is pretty addictive, I have to say. Have you used it?
Yeah. I used it when I was first starting out to get ready for technical interviews. It helped me really solidify my understanding of those core algorithms and data structures. And it felt less like studying and more like solving puzzles, which I liked.
I love to hear that. It makes it seem less scary, like something we can actually do. And speaking of putting our skills to the test, what about those coding challenges the article talks about?
Yes. Platforms like LeetCode, HackerRank, Code Wars, they're amazing for practicing problem solving, but also for getting used to the technical interview process.
So it's like a safe space to practice those whiteboarding skills and get feedback.
Exactly. And every challenge you finish, it's like a data point on your profile, showing potential employers what you can do. Plus, some platforms even give you certificates or badges you can put on your portfolio.
True. It's not just about practicing alone. It's about having proof, right? It's like leveling up in a video game, but for algorithms.
I like that. And while we're talking about showing off our skills, the article also mentions networking. being part of the tech community.
Get out there and meet our fellow code nerds.
Exactly. Go to meetups, workshops, conferences, anywhere you can connect with people who are passionate about tech.
I know networking is valuable, but honestly, the thought of walking into a room full of experienced developers is kind of terrifying. Any tips for someone who's a little shy about networking?
For sure. First of all, remember, everyone's there to learn and connect. Don't be afraid to start conversations, even if it's just asking about someone's work or what excites them about tech.
That's a good point. People love talking about what they're into, and tech people are no different.
Exactly. And that little conversation could lead to a job opportunity, a mentor, or even just a cool connection that makes your journey more interesting.
So, networking isn't just about, like, finding a job, it's about building those relationships.
Yes. And building an online presence can be a part of that too. It can make you more visible to employers as well.
Right. We talked about GitHub, but the article encourages us to think bigger about building an online presence as programmers who can communicate.
It does. It suggests things like starting a blog about tech or even making tutorial videos, sharing what you know.
I've been wanting to try that. I love the idea of helping others who are just starting out.
Hey, you never know who might find your blog or your videos. Could be a potential employer impressed by how well you explain things.
So it's not just about what we can do with code, it's also how well we can talk about it, explain it.
Yes, being able to clearly explain your technical choices, that's a super valuable skill.
That's true. And it goes back to documentation, too. Communicating clearly is important all the time, whether it's explaining your code to a coworker or presenting to a client or even writing a blog post.
Exactly. You might even realize you really like technical writing or teaching.
I love that. It's all about having more skills, not just checking boxes, becoming well-rounded,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Personal brand building, showing you're not just skilled, but also passionate, engaged, and always learning. And speaking of, the article talks about the whole degree thing, which I know a lot of us think about, especially if we're self-taught or went to a boot camp.
Yeah, it's a big one.
It is. The article addresses it really well, though, in a practical way.
Okay, so what's the answer? Do we need that formal CS degree to get into tech?
Well, they say that while a lot of job postings ask for a CS degree, it's not always a make or break thing. A really strong portfolio can be just as good, or even better, at showing what you know and what you've done.
Show, don't tell, right?
Exactly. Let your projects speak for themselves. Highlight any relevant classes or independent study you've done, and most importantly, show how much you love learning and how good you are at solving problems.
Because in the end, that's what matters, right?
Absolutely. A lot of companies, especially now, care more about what you can do than where you learned it. They want people who are adaptable, eager to learn, and who can actually solve problems.
That is seriously encouraging. So it's about playing to our strengths, showcasing those skills, showing our value.
Yes, that's what makes this article so good. It gives you a roadmap for tech, no matter what your background is.
This has been so helpful, I have to say. I think we've really broken this down, given everyone a lot to think about. But before we send everyone off to build their amazing portfolios, anything else we should mention? Any final wisdom?
You know, as we were talking, something from the article popped into my head. It has this whole section on tailoring your portfolio for different jobs, which we only touched on briefly.
Right. A front-end developer's portfolio is going to look different from a data scientist's, even if they both involve coding.
Exactly. And while we don't have time to go into all of that, I think it's important for everyone to remember to think about their audience.
So even before we start building, we need to think about our goals, what specific roles we want, and what those employers are looking for.
Yes, do your research, look at job descriptions, and really make sure your portfolio highlights the skills and experiences that are most relevant to those roles.
It's like dress for the job you want, but for code.
I love that. And it's not about being fake or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about showcasing the best version of yourself, your most relevant skills, to the right people.
You know, it's funny. I think we often think about building a portfolio as like checking things off a list, right? Learn this language, build that project, get this certification. But I feel like what you're saying, what this article is saying, is it's got to be about more than that, right?
Yeah, totally. It's like, think about the difference between, like, putting together a piece of IKEA furniture, right? Versus, like, building something beautiful by hand, something that reflects your style. They both, like, serve a purpose, but one of them has a story behind it, you know?
That's such a good analogy. And I think that's what really connected with me in this article. It's not just follow the formula. It's about putting ourselves into our portfolios.
Exactly. And, you know, making a great portfolio, it's not a one and done thing. It's a process, learning, experimenting, getting better over time. It's got to grow with you as you become a better programmer.
That is so important to remember because it's easy to get caught up in wanting it to be perfect right away. But the truth is, we're all constantly learning, right? So our portfolio should show that.
Totally. Don't be afraid to show your progress. Highlight those projects
Hmm.
that really demonstrate how far you've come.
Yeah,
And most of all, have fun with it. Making a portfolio shouldn't be a chore. It should be exciting.
I could not agree more. Well, everyone, there you have it. The end of our deep dive into building those awesome programming portfolios. Hopefully you're feeling energized, you're feeling inspired, and you're ready to go out there and make something amazing.
Remember, the tech world's waiting for you, for your unique talents, your perspective.
So go forth and code with confidence.